sammen, og god dag alle sammen. This video is going to be the first one about Odin spells, Odin spells in the Havamal. So if you haven't watched the intro to this video, go ahead and do that. I'll put a link to that one in the description below. That will give you a quick idea of what we're doing here. So for those of you watching for the first time, this is the first video in a series about Odin's 18 charms. So if you've read Havamal, one of the most famous works, if you're into Norse paganism at all, I'm sure you've read Havamal. It's a book of ethics of the Viking Age, technically considered the book of ethics of the Vikings or Norse people from earlier on. But we also forget that there is a little bit of magic in there as well. At the very last part of the book, there's a part that we call Ljodatal. I'll put that up here somewhere, and what it is 18 charms from Odin. Now, these charms are a bit funny because he says that he knows these charms, he tells you what they are and what they do, but he doesn't tell you how to cast them. So a lot of scholars think that's about the end of it, and that's it. We don't know the spells. Odin just said that he knows how to do them. But if we look at other magic from later on in history, or even earlier on in history, we can come up with a pretty good idea of what these spells might have been actually. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get to it. So here is Odin's charm number 1. This is in Havamal. I'll put it up here. This is the original Old Norse text. And the translations on these are so different, but everyone does it a bit differently. But I'm reading from here. It's Benjamin Thorpe's translation. So here it goes, the English version. Those songs I know, which the king's wife knows not, nor son of man. Help, the first is called. For that will help thee against strifes and cares. So I don't really like that translation a whole bunch, but really, when you look at other translation of this exact text here, it's against a struggle of all kind, and it could be against sickness, it can be against conflicts, it can be against sorrow or sadness or strifes. That's how it's translated. So it's basically a spell, a charm that he sings to protect against all kinds of struggles, really, and that's a very, very difficult one to examine just because it is so vague, and it could be a number of different spells. There's, of course, it's so vague and it can be so many different ones, but there are a few spells that stand out when you look at the historical texts from later on in time, and I'll go over these. So first one here, I'll put it up here. This was from Jon Arneson. He wrote about this in his book of Icelandic folk tales and legends. The staves Gapaldur and Ginfaxi. Now later on in time, the Gapaldur stave was used specifically for wrestling matches with Ginfaxi, but earlier on in time, it seems here like this could be used for all kinds of struggles, all kinds of problems. So this is just a quick one, and you have a little charm here. And also certain forms of Agus Hjalmur were also looked at later on in time, but before in time, Agus Hjalmur was basically marking on the helmet that was said to bring fear into enemies, but later on in Iceland, in some of the magic books, there were different forms of Agus Hjalmur that would supposedly help bring protection from all kinds of danger. So again, this is a symbol with very, very old roots. Here we have another one right here. I won't read this because it's way too long and I can't pronounce any of those damn words anyway, but there it is. So what it looks like, it's just a total Christian prayer. This is from the Galdrabok, which is the main Icelandic magic book that we have. It looks totally Christian here, but it's believed by some historians to be kind of a coded message and perhaps had a pagan equivalent. Instead of listing these Christian gods and figures here, they maybe listed off the pagan gods in earlier times. So it would make sense because this is the very first spell recorded actually in the Galdrabok. So it would have been the very earliest one, probably written sometime in the 1500s, maybe even before. So it would make sense that this could be possibly the spell that Odin is talking about in his first charm here, but there's no way to know for sure. Just a wild guess. Here's another one. This is number 14 in the Galdrabok. It is against all kinds of suffering and danger, it's supposed to be. And in Galdrabok, there are quite a few magical staves like this that could be linked to this spell of Odin against all kinds of danger and suffering or any problems like Odin says he can cast a charm. But in Havamal, he specifically said that this was something that he sung. So we're looking specifically for a sung charm, something that you could sing. That's because that's probably what Odin would have been talking about here. So here's another one. This is maybe my best guess. I'll put it right here. It's a long one, so I'll not read that one either, but if you'd like to pause the video and take a better look at it, you can, and then read the whole thing. But just going over a summary, this is for protection against all things. You're supposed to recite this or sing it or whatever, and it was supposed to protect against all kinds of things, harm or injury, the elements like earth, water, or fire, evil men, sickness, earthquakes, venom, everything. So this looks pretty good. This looks pretty close to what we're looking at. And at first glance, this one seems to be Christian, but there's a few experts that agree that this one has pagan origins. First, because of the linguistic style of how it was originally written. It also has some pagan elements to it, such as right in the title there, Brini, which was a breastplate used by ancient Germanic peoples. Also, if you read in there, there's mentions of people being shot by trolls or elves, which is a very pagan thing, and also the fact that it protects against a lot of different things coming from all places. We do see Christian magic for protection and for protection and help in a struggle of different kinds, but the Christian spells we see are usually a bit more specific. They protect from, a specific type of sickness or a specific type of danger. So the fact that this spell is so broad and its protection is probably a pagan characteristic. So also this spell, you see Christian names in there. It would be easy to replace just with names of Norse gods. Perhaps the Norse gods were in there in the original version of the spell, and then it was Christianized like we see in a lot of other spells. So if I was to take a guess, I would say that this is a very old, originally pagan spell that has been Christianized. And I would probably say that there is a good chance that this one was the spell that Odin was referring to in his first charm in the Havamal that we see here. But like I said, this spell is very, very broad, and it's really impossible to tell which spell Odin was actually talking about in this stanza. But this is a pretty good guess. But like I said, in other of the stanzas and other ones of the 18 charms, it will be a lot more clear as to which spell it could be, and I'm going to look at that in the next videos coming up. There will be 18 separate videos on this, one for each of Odin's charms, so keep an eye out for that. That'll be coming soon. See ya.